This is week 3 of the fall trimester of my Atelier diary. For my figure painting, I'm really trying to push the color. In my last figure painting that I did, the colors, I'm really happy with how the painting turned out, but the colors compared to other paintings that I'm comparing it to, my painting is a little bit gray. So for this painting, I'm really trying to push the colors. And so on Monday, trying to push the colors, I worked on the shoulders, chest, stomach, and the upper legs, pretty much the lightest areas of the painting. And then on Tuesday, I spent the first part of the day working on the parts that I couldn't get to on Monday. So I worked on the hands, feet, lower legs, and the face, and really just trying to push and make sure that those areas are more red. And the second half of the day, I really worked on the chest because I'm trying to key the painting. And part of keying means that you're finding your darkest darks and your lightest lights. So in this situation, the breasts on the painting are the lightest part of the painting, and then the background is the darkest. And so I'm trying to key the painting early on so I can really establish the value range that I'm going to be working in. On Wednesday, I'm trying to push the colors more. I'm noticing that the painting is starting to come off looking pretty orange, so I'm trying to work with the cooler areas, like adding greens and blues to kind of balance it out. So this day, Matt told me to really focus on how I'm putting the paint down, not to make things look stripy, but to really be painting across the form to get more interesting brush strokes that way. So for example, getting something that's looking stripy can be if you're working on, or when you're putting paint down and kind of following the drawing. So if I had a hand and you have the outline of the hand, if you are just putting your paint down and kind of like swirling it around the drawing, that's how you can get it looking kind of stripy, and it doesn't look so good, and it kind of doesn't lend its way to good technique or really showing the form of what you're painting. It's harder doing this to kind of get everything to be blended well and have good transitions, but instead of following the form like that, if you do the fingers this way instead of this way, it just expresses the form better and you can get more interesting paint strokes that way. So here's a close-up of the painting so you can kind of see how I'm laying the brush strokes in. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a brush stroke down and then stepping back, putting a brush stroke down and then stepping back. And so it's fast reactions and seeing what I'm doing, how it's affecting the whole entire piece. Back from a distance rather than close-ups and looking at small details. But this is also a hard way to work because if you're leaving brush strokes down and you're not blending them out, if you're not doing it well, it can make things look choppy and not so unified, which is kind of how my painting's looking right now. I'm glad I'm practicing it, so I just need to work on trying to get all these forms to be looking more unified. Thursday, it was a rainy day, so it was pretty dark, so I worked mostly in the shadow shapes, unifying the shadows, also working on the transitions from the shadows to the halftones to lighter areas, just working on transitions really. And then also I did a lot of work on the head. So the head I'm finding really tricky, one because she kind of does move her head around a lot, and I'm sure it's probably her neck gets sore since it's at such a far angle that she's holding it for the pose. But one thing that I've been doing to try and help myself and see how my head is different than hers, position-wise, is I look at her nose and her ear and see how they line up to see how far away the position that she's holding herself in right now is different from my painting. So then I can make relative changes from there. But it still really wasn't looking like her, and I was getting frustrated. And so for my critique that day, Matt said to really simplify the planes of her face. And in this pose, her head is pretty dark anyways, but you can still see all of her features. And so I was painting it that way, getting her chin, lips, nose, eyes, ear, all that stuff in. But then if you squint down, it really unifies everything. It unifies the planes of the face. So squinting down, I see a light plane, and then everything except for the nose is in shadow. And so that's how I painted it. I really kind of took away all the detail that I had in there, and simplifying it into those planes really made a lot of sense of where my head was looking weird and not like her. So I was really working with then the big shape of the head, making sure that the plane of the front side of the face and the back of the head, and then the plane that turns that's in shadow, and then the light plane of the face were all making sense. And so working with the big shape of the head, that's really important to nail down first, because once you get that, the features should just fit into that. But if you're just messing around with the features, that can kind of be an exhausting thing where you're just constantly moving things around, and maybe you won't ever get the big shape of the head, so it's not going to look like her no matter how hard you try and move those features around. And then I had Friday revelations. So Friday, the day was really sunny, meaning that the light was pretty gray. It's counterintuitive, but when you're working from natural light, the cloudy days are the most colorful, most beautiful, brightest, best days. The sunny days are actually makes everything kind of look washed out, dark, and just not colorful, more gray. And so what I did was I mixed my palette for the gray day, and I was trying to work on my painting, but everything was just looking wrong, so I didn't, because my painting was really warm and kind of too orangey still. So all of these gray tones on the orange was looking weird, and I didn't know what to do, so I was trying to make my palette more colorful, but then that was confusing as well. But Magda came by for critique, and she said that it's actually good working under natural light because it's giving you warm days some days, and then cooler days other days. And then at least when you're still blocking in the painting, you should really mix your palette to what you're seeing in nature. But if you're working the cold palette one day and the warm palette the other day, and keep kind of going back and forth whatever the daylight's giving you, you should get a pretty nice average of skin tones then. So then I just took the cool palette and I painted over everything. And this was the first time that I really worked the painting everywhere, because usually I get stuck in it's still a big area, maybe like the top portion of the painting or the lower portion of the painting, but I feel like I can't get everywhere. But this time I was able to paint the whole painting at once with this cooler palette, and I feel like it really did balance out the super warm painting that I had with all the cool colors, so it looks more like realistic skin now. And now for the cast. I'm done with my cast, hooray! I finished it up on Wednesday. So for Monday and Tuesday, I was really working on the area that's from the belt with the cloth that falls down and goes all the way down into the base. So I was working all that cloth and then working more on the base. And then on Wednesday, I went back and I repainted the whole entire shadow shape and I tried to unify it all. And I think going back and unifying the shadow shape really brought the painting up another notch. So I'm glad I did that. And I'll make a video about this cast and everything that I learned while working on this one. I really learned a lot. I'll get that video out as soon as possible. But I'm really happy that I'm done with it because now I get to work on my final cast. And I'm really excited about this one. It's gonna be epic. It's a huge relief with 4 cherubs. It's covered in dust and busted up, and the plaster and paint is peeling off, so it looks really cool. I'm so excited. I started the transfer drawing on Friday. The paper, I think it's 42 by 36, but that's just the transfer drawing. It'll still, I think the painting will be 42, but I'm gonna make it taller, so the canvas will be a bit bigger than what you're seeing for the paper. But I'm so excited to work on this one and excited that it'll be my last cast as well. And I think this is going to be a really nice cast for something that's going to bring me right into still life, which is the next part of the program. And then all my extras for the week. So Tuesday we have evening drawing. This is the gesture that I did. I didn't get to push it as far as I did last week because I was student teaching this week, so my drawing time was a little bit shorter, but I still like the gesture that I captured on it. Wednesday we had anatomy class. We talked about the head and the spine. Talking about the head was really helpful and seeing how it's breaking down into simple shapes. A pro tip, Brett told us that when you're doing a portrait, if you look down on the person's head and see how the planes of the face are turning, if they're turning slow or fast, that's going to really help you to get a likeness. Also, he said the bone right here and then the bone right here, looking down on the head, seeing how far out they are from each other, and probably also the distance this way, really helps you to capture a likeness. Thursday, we had our first portrait club session, so that was really fun. I think that the anatomy lecture of the head really helped me get the shapes, because I've done some portrait stuff before, not too much, mostly self-portraits, and then also me just drawing my my husband. And it usually takes me a while to get the features and to try and get a likeness, but I think I got it a lot faster than I normally would have, and I think it was because the anatomy class. I did this drawing in pencil. I think the sheet of paper is 11 by 17 maybe, which is pretty big, I think, for me to do a pencil drawing like that, because there's just a lot of, it just takes a while to fill in all those shadow shapes and make them look unified and nice and even with a pencil. So, and it's about 2 hours. I think The first one though, it was a little less than 2 hours, but the next one I'm going to do charcoal because I think that'll be easier to fill in all those shadow shapes so I can push it along farther.